The Village Whispers. Once upon a time, in the picturesque village of Eldergrove, nestled among the rolling hills and adorned with vibrant wildflower meadows, lived a gentle giant named Eli. He was a man whose kindness was as vast as the azure sky, but it was his physical size that caught the attention of the villagers most frequently. Standing taller than all his peers and possessing broad shoulders, Eli often felt more like an observer in his own life, a comforting presence to the children and the elderly, but a source of embarrassment and trepidation for the village women. Every morning, Eli would rise with the sun, his heart filled with hope despite the whispers that followed him like shadows. He'd wander through the cobblestone streets, smiling at the familiar faces, exchanging pleasantries as he helped carry heavy sacks of grain or fetch water from the well. Yet, as he passed the clusters of women gathered outside their cottages, laughing, weaving, and gossiping, he felt a familiar warmth turn to an uncomfortable chill. "Oh, look at Eli," they would murmur amongst themselves, attempting to stifle their laughter. "He must have been born in a giant's family. Look at his hands, they're as big as my head." Eli would force a smile, nodding in acknowledgement before quickening his pace, hoping to evade the waves of giggles that often followed him. Though the villagers cherished Eli's amiable spirit, their unease often formed invisible walls around him, keeping him at arm's length. Loneliness became his constant companion, an uninvited guest who settled in his heart as he retreated to the hills for solace. Today, like many others, Eli had ventured to help old Mrs. Hargrove with her garden. Nestled at the edge of the village, her small plot was a riot of color thanks to her diligent care. Eli knelt beside her, careful not to crush the delicate petals as he helped weed the rows of bright marigolds and drooping daisies that had been planted. "Oh, Eli, you're too good to me." Mrs. Hargrove chuckled, her gnarled hands working swiftly, deftly slipping weeds from the soil. "Sometimes I think you might as well take root out here in my garden. You'd make an excellent scarecrow with those long legs." Their laughter danced in the air, and Eli felt grateful for the vibrant energy that surrounded him in Mrs. Hargrove's presence. Yet, as the sun climbed higher, casting shadows across the blooms, his mind wandered to thoughts of connection, of companionship that would take him away from his solitude. After finishing the weeding, Eli helped carry a basket of fresh vegetables back to Mrs. Hargrove's doorstep. His heart lightened momentarily, but the moment he turned to leave, he caught sight of the group of women standing nearby, their voices hushed, eyes darting in his direction. "Really, look at his size," one whispered emphatically, her tone tinted with fear. "What if he—" Eli's heart sank as he caught the tail end of their conversation, the dread of their imagination weaving stories that only deepened his feelings of inadequacy. He adjusted the weight of the basket in his hands, resolutely avoiding their gazes and making his way home with the weight of their laughter pressing down on him. Days morphed into weeks, and the cycles of solitude wrapped themselves tighter around Eli. Each night as he lay beneath a canopy of stars, he would think about love, what it would be like, how marvelous it would feel. He dreamt of companionship that would fill the void in his heart, someone who would see him for who he truly was. Yet, reality always brought him back to the village's whispers, the fear, the ridicule, and the looming shadows that defined his existence. Finally, one fateful day on his stroll through Eldergrove, Eli stumbled upon a commotion near the village square. Curious, he approached, peering over the heads of excited children to see what had drawn everyone's attention. A festival was brewing, with colorful banners fluttering in the gentle breeze and stalls brimming with homemade treats. The joyful atmosphere was infectious, and for an instant, Eli allowed himself to be swept up in the euphoria. But as laughter echoed around him, Eli felt the familiar confines of unease holding him back. He watched from a distance, wishing he could participate like the others. But fear clamped down on him, a heavy chain made of the village's judgments. Wandering to the outskirts of the festivities, Eli found solace on a small hill nearby, overlooking the joy below. The evening sun painted the sky in hues of gold and amber, igniting a flicker of longing in his heart. As he sat there, isolated yet yearning for connection, Eli gazed out toward the crowd, carrying with him a hope that perhaps one day, he would find someone who would look past his exterior, a soul willing to see the true depths of who he could be. But for now, under a sky ignited with possibilities, Eli would settle once more into the silence. The laughter below a reminder of what could be, and the visions of love that danced in his heart, ever so tantalizing yet always just beyond his reach. Curves of fate. Eli's routine consisted of the same comforting rituals each day, but now, a whisper of change tantalized him just beyond his reach. The sun hung high the day after the festival, painting the sky a brilliant blue. Inspired by glimpses of laughter he had witnessed the previous evening, he decided to wander further than usual. Perhaps today would lead him to something unexpected, a new chance at connection. With determination coursing through him, he walked toward the heart of the village, his mind filled with the joyful sounds of the festival. As he approached the bustling marketplace, he felt the warmth of the sun against his skin, an almost encouraging embrace in the midst of his uncertainties. Excitement tinged with apprehension filled him, and he took a deep breath, resolved to face whatever came his way. Amidst the lively chatter and haggling, Eli noticed a small gathering around a booth laden with vibrant herbs and colorful cloths, Lila's stall. She was known in the village for her exceptional skill as a healer, having learned the art from her grandmother. Eli had heard much about her warmth, her infectious laughter, and the gentle way she spoke to everyone who came to her for help. Today, she radiated joy as she demonstrated to a group of curious children the proper uses of various herbs. Through the throng of people, Eli caught a glimpse of her curly chestnut hair bouncing as she leaned down to explain something to a wide-eyed child. Instinctively, he felt drawn to her, a magnet that pulled on his heartstrings. But he hesitated, lingering at the edge of the gathering, a wall of uncertainty rising around him. "Look at that one!" a child squealed, pointing toward Eli. "He's so big." Lila looked up, her bright green eyes sparkling with kindness. Rather than stepping back or recoiling, she smiled, the kind of smile that warmed Eli from within. "That's not a reason to be afraid," she said, educating the child with grace. "Sometimes the biggest people have the biggest hearts." Eli felt a flush of warmth spread across his cheeks. It was astonishing how a single heartfelt moment could pierce through the veil of his isolation, and he wondered if he could muster the courage to move closer. "Do you know Eli?" Lila asked the children, drawing their attention away from her herbal display. "He helps everyone in the village." Eli's heart raced at the implication, his mind racing through moments of kindness shared amongst villagers, moments he had considered insignificant but that she valued so deeply. He took a step closer, the magnetic pull of Lila far too strong to resist. When the children turned to see him, their animated chatter fell silent, and for a split second, he feared they would echo the adults' laughter that had chased him throughout his life. But then Lila stepped forward, her presence soothing his racing heart. "Eli, look who's come to join us," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm genuine. "Kids, this is Eli, and he knows a wonderful tale about our village." The children cheered, fascinated by the promise of a story. Eli felt a wave of courage wash over him. Perhaps this was his moment. "Hello there, everyone," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "I do have a tale about a very special tree that grew on a hill." The children's faces lit up, their excitement palpable as he began to weave his tale about the ancient tree that sheltered countless villagers, how it had witnessed love stories, laughter, and the passage of time. As he animatedly narrated, he noticed Lila's attentive gaze, her bright eyes sparkling with fascination. When he finished his story, the children clapped enthusiastically, their laughter piercing through the remnants of Eli's earlier trepidation. "Do you have any more stories, Eli?" one little girl piped up. "I could share many," he replied, feeling a newfound lightness in his heart. Lila stepped closer, her smile warm and encouraging. "Your storytelling is wonderful. Have you ever thought about sharing more tales at the village gatherings?" Eli considered her suggestion, timing of the moment aligning perfectly. "I haven't, but perhaps I could," he replied hesitantly, the idea swelling within him. The thought of not only entertaining the children but potentially connecting with his peers gave him a sense of purpose. "You should definitely consider it. The village would love to hear your stories," Lila encouraged, her voice soft yet firm, as if she could see potential in him that he hadn't yet discovered in himself. As the day drifted on, the once muted sounds of the marketplace turned to an orchestra of joyous voices, hearts dancing within their simple conversations. Eli stood among them, buoyed by Lila's faith in his talents. He couldn't remember the last time he felt such a rush of acceptance. "Eli, would you like to help me with the herb stand now?" Lila suggested suddenly, her voice reshaping his reality even further. I could use a strong hand. Before he could overthink or doubt himself, he nodded. Helping her not only kept him by her side but also allowed him to contribute to the village in another way. As he helped sort colorful herbs and interact with customers, a new sense of belonging began to blossom within him. With each herb he placed on the table and each conversation he engaged in, Eli felt the shadows of mockery beginning to fade. Lila's laughter and kindness wrapped around him like a shield, allowing him to sink deeper into the rich tapestry of life in Eldergrove. Little did he know, this day would mark the turning point in his life, a gentle push from chance and fate. The path ahead unfolded like the wildflowers scattered across the meadows, vivid and full of unexpected possibilities. A glade of connection. The soft glow of the morning sun filtered through the leaves as Eli made his way toward the hidden glade, his heart fluttering with excitement. The village marketplace, where he had stood beside Lila, still buzzed in his memory. Her laughter, warm and inviting, echoed in his ears. Decisions brewed in his mind as he walked, his imagination spinning new stories, unsure of what the day would hold. As he approached the glade, he felt the warm embrace of its tranquility wash over him. The tall trees formed a protective arch, creating a sanctuary far removed from the curiosity and laughter of Eldergrove. It was a haven where Eli often found solitude, where the weight of external voices could be momentarily set aside. Today, however, the glade beckoned him not only as a retreat but as a place of potential connection, perhaps even love. He settled onto a sun-dappled patch of grass, inhaling the sweet scent of wildflowers. Closing his eyes, he envisioned sharing stories with Lila here, amidst nature's splendor, where the world felt softer and more forgiving. His musings were interrupted when a familiar voice broke the peaceful silence. "Eli, is that you?" Eli's eyes flew open as he turned to see Lila stepping through the trees, her green dress swirling and her curly hair catching the sunlight like spun gold. She carried a woven basket filled with an assortment of herbs and wildflowers, gently swaying with each step. The sight of her sparked an unexpected warmth in his chest. "Lila," he exclaimed, his surprise melting into delight. "What a lovely surprise. Isn't it a beautiful day?" she said, beaming. "I thought I'd come here to gather some herbs. It's the best spot for wild chamomile, and they grow abundantly at this time of year." Eli smiled, feeling the peace of the glade settle around them. "It is peaceful here," he replied. "I always come to think and escape. It feels like a little hidden world." "Exactly." Lila knelt to inspect the flowers, gently pulling up some of the delicate blooms. "Nature has a way of helping us connect with ourselves, doesn't it?" Eli watched her work, fascinated by how effortlessly she moved among the plants. There was poetry in her actions. Her fingers danced over petals and leaves as if they were familiar friends. "You really have a gift," he said, admiring her enthusiasm. "You make it look so easy." "It's easy when you feel connected to it," she replied, looking up at him momentarily. "And it's wonderful to share those connections." As they gathered herbs together, Eli felt his fears ebb away. The conversations flowed naturally, weaving stories of herbal remedies and village lore. Lila's knowledge was vast, her insights thoughtful and profound. Every story she shared created a tapestry of lives lived and lessons learned, and Eli found himself sharing more than he ever thought possible. "Did you know that chamomile is known for its calming properties?" Lila explained, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "It helps with sleep and aids digestion. My grandmother used to say it had the power to wash away worries." Eli nodded, feeling comforted by her words. "I could use some chamomile in my life," he chuckled, a hint of vulnerability revealing itself in his voice. "Sometimes, I feel like I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders." Lila's expression shifted, turning serious. "You shouldn't have to bear that weight alone," she said softly, placing a hand on his arm. "Everyone feels heavy sometimes. It's okay to lean on others." Eli's heart raced at her touch, warmth flooding through him. He wanted to explain the burdens he faced, the weight of judgments, the fear of loneliness, but it was difficult to untangle the threads of his emotions. "I've always thought that being large meant being strong," he confessed. "That I should be the one helping others." "Strength isn't about size," Lila reassured him, her voice soothing, the sincerity in her eyes unwavering. "It's about sharing your heart, allowing others to lift you too. You give so much to others." It's important that you allow yourself to receive as well. He took a deep breath, allowing her words to sink in. Perhaps this moment was a glimmer of understanding he had desperately sought. You make it sound easy, he said, his gaze fixed on the dancing sunlight. But how do I let people in? Step by step, she said with a smile. Just start with honesty. You've already made strides by sharing your stories with the children. Imagine how much more you can connect with those who are willing to listen. I suppose I can try, he managed, feeling the burdens shift ever so slightly. You've already changed so much for me today. Their laughter danced through the glade like a warm breeze, the unexpected camaraderie easing Eli's heart. They continued gathering herbs, their voices mingling with the sounds of nature, chirping birds, rustling leaves, and the echo of unfolding stories. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the glen, Eli looked at Lila, her brow slightly furrowed in concentration as she settled her basket. Thank you for today, Lila. I didn't expect to find such connection, he said, his heart swelling with gratitude. There's magic in shared moments, she replied, her eyes locking onto his. Especially with someone like you, who cares so much for others. Just remember, the right people will see the real you, and there's beauty in that. Her words lingered in the air, settling into Eli's spirit. For the first time, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a flame of possibility that whispered he could open his heart further. I'd love to share more of those stories with you, he said, feeling a surge of confidence. Maybe I could tell you about the scarecrow who wished to dance one day. Lila's laughter twinkled like the fading sunlight. I'd love that. And who knows? Perhaps one day he'll find a partner for his dance. Their shared laughter filled the glade, and in that moment, surrounded by nature's embrace and the promise of connection, Eli started to believe that he wasn't just a gentle giant destined for solitude. Together, they would navigate the twists and turns of life, weaving new stories, one shared moment at a time. Breaking barriers. The days following Eli's enchanting afternoon in the glade filled with laughter and connection were eerily quiet. The world outside hadn't changed, but Eli certainly felt transformed in some way. With each moment he spent with Lila, fear and uncertainty crept further into the background, replaced by a flickering hope that began to feel more like a flame. Eli awoke that morning with a renewed sense of purpose. Today, he had resolved to approach the village gathering in a way he never had before. Normally, he would retreat to the sidelines, but after sharing his stories and connecting with Lila, the thought of being an active participant in the community felt impossibly inviting. Surely, he could embrace his role within the fabric of Eldergrove, no matter how challenging it seemed. As he donned his simpler, casual clothes, a soft green tunic and well-worn trousers, he practiced the speech he would give to the villagers. My name is Eli, and I have stories to share, he muttered to a curious chicken pecking at the ground nearby. The chicken offered no critique but strutted away, as if uninterested in tales of folklore. With a deep breath, Eli stepped outside and felt the warmth of the sun engulf him. The air buzzed with anticipation, and the distant sounds of chatter drew him toward the village square. He could already hear the clinking of pots, the laughter of children, and the familiar murmur of villagers discussing everything from crops to gossip. Reassuring himself that he had Lila's support behind him, he trudged forward with each beat of his heart echoing in his ears. As he approached the gathering, the usual giggles and whispers flared momentarily, but today, Eli chose to be brave. He pressed his lips into a firm line and stood a bit taller. Lila was already mingling with the villagers, sprinkling kindness like confetti as she moved from one group to another. She spotted Eli, her face lighting up in a way that momentarily silenced his worries. There you are, she called out, her voice ringing like a welcoming bell. I've been looking for you. Her enthusiasm revitalized Eli. I'm here to participate, he replied. I thought maybe I could share some stories. Of course you can, she said, clapping her hands together, her eyes sparkling. It's wonderful you decided to join in. The villagers will love your tales. With her encouragement bolstering his resolve, Eli decided to seek the attention of the group assembled near the large oak tree in the center of the square. Clearing his throat, he approached the circle of animated villagers, heart racing. Excuse me, he called, his voice steady even if his hands trembled slightly. I have a story to share. The crowd turned, faces of curiosity and surprise looking back at him. To his relief, The soft whisperings and tentative laughter faded into an attentive silence. Eli met their gazes, trying to hold on to the faith he'd found with Lila's help. "What kind of story?" came a voice from the back, thick with skepticism and uncertainty. Eli's heart sank a little, but he returned fire, for Lila's presence steadied him. "It's a story about the wise old oak tree that shelters our village," he said, gesturing toward the magnificent tree standing proud and tall at the heart of the square. The villagers leaned in closer, intrigued by the connection between the story and their local landmark. Eli took a breath, transformed by their engagement, and started weaving his narrative. With each passing moment, he entwined their real experiences with the tale of a tree that had provided shelter to all creatures, a guardian witnessing joy, sorrow, and love, a silent custodian guiding villagers through their trials. Some villagers listened with bright eyes, while others rubbed their stubbled chins or leaned closer to whisper to one another. Yet for the first time, Eli felt like he was anchored to the ground, no longer floating on the fringes. The skepticism from earlier faded as laughter and understanding filled the spaces in between his words. "Every time a storm brewed, the tree would stand tall, reminding us that we too could weather any tempest," he concluded, his heart thumping in his chest. A ripple of applause broke through the crowd, more jubilant than he had expected, and for a moment, Eli stood stunned, engulfed in applause. Overcome with emotion, Eli's eyes searched for Lila in the crowd. When their eyes met, her encouraging smile illuminated him like sunlight breaking through the clouds, urging him on. As the applause settled, Eli noticed an elderly woman stepping forward with an air of authority. "You've always helped others, Eli," she said, her voice steady yet warm. "It's about time you found the courage to share your gifts with us." Tears prickled at the corners of Eli's eyes as he felt a swell of warmth within. "I'm grateful," he managed to say, still feeling the lingering high of connection and acceptance. "I didn't realize how much it meant until today." The old woman nodded in understanding and ambled back into the crowd. Yet an ignited spark remained in Eli's heart, a spark that whispered of journeys untold and connection made. Later, as the sun began to dip low in the evening sky, casting a golden glow over the village, Eli noticed the women who once laughed and retreated from him now mingling freely, their demeanor different. Maybe they'd recognized something in him that had eclipsed the past, a relinquishing of preconceived notions. Lila sidled up to him, her face alight with excitement. "You were amazing. Did you see how they reacted?" Eli chuckled, disbelief still dancing in his voice. "I honestly didn't expect that response. It felt incredible." "It's only the beginning," Lila enthused, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "With every story you tell, every connection you make, you'll build a bridge to the heart of this village." They stood together, entwined in the joyous crowd, the harmony of laughter and chatter enveloping them like a soft embrace. Eli felt a gradual shift within himself as the barriers he had built began to crumble. He had finally taken the plunge, breaking free from the confines of judgment and stepping firmly into the realm of acceptance. And in Lila's presence, he saw not just a friend, but a guide lighting the way ahead. Each shared experience crafting a pathway to a life filled with love, connection, and shared stories yet to be told. Love's revelation. The breeze carried the crisp scent of autumn as Eli stepped into the golden glow of the village square. It had been some time since he had shared his story about the wise old oak tree, and the community now treated him differently. Conversations flowed more easily, laughter surrounded him, and the women who once hesitated began to approach him with ease. Yet, amidst these newfound depths of connection lay a growing tension that Eli could no longer dismiss. With every shared moment alongside Lila, he felt a deeper bond forming, one that floated gently between friends and something more. But every time he caught her gaze, a feeling of uncertainty tightened his chest. What if stepping into this new realm of potential joy meant stepping toward vulnerability? Eli arrived at the gathering earlier than usual, where the villagers were preparing for the harvest festival. The square buzzed with excitement as families painted wooden booths, hung vibrant flowers, and laid out tables laden with homemade treats. As the laughter echoed across the cobblestones, Eli spotted Lila, her curls bouncing as she fluttered from one stall to another, her hands weaving through bundles of herbs and colorful decorations. "Eli, you're just in time," Lila exclaimed, her eyes lighting up upon seeing him. "Want to help me set up the herb booth?" "Of course," Eli replied, trying to push down the fluttering in his stomach as he approached. They worked side by side, arranging dried flowers and sweet-smelling herbs, cobbling together an inviting space that felt reflective of both their personalities. While they set up, Lila spoke animatedly about the remedies she had prepared, her passion brightening the air around them. But Eli couldn't shake the bubbling emotions that danced beneath his surface, his heart racing at the thought of confessing what had been tangled up inside him for weeks. "Lila," he began hesitantly, pausing as she looked over with curiosity. "I've been thinking." "Yes," she encouraged, wiping her hands on her apron, her attention fully on him. Eli took a breath, searching for the right words. "You've become such a wonderful part of my life. I can't express how grateful I am for your friendship. You've helped me through so many doubts and fears." She smiled, warmth radiating from her. "I feel the same way, Eli. You've brought a new light to my life too." Eli's heart lifted. Each day he spent with her felt like another brick in a wall he'd long been building around his heart, now crumbling, slowly but surely. "There's something I need to tell you, something I can't hold back any longer." "Anything," she urged, her green eyes sparkling with eagerness. "I think I might be in love with you," he confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Or at least I'm falling for you. Every moment we spend together, I feel this connection that's more than friendship." Silence hung between them, and Eli's heart dipped, clenched tight with apprehension. Had he ruined everything? Would she laugh or pull away? Finally, Lila's expression softened, as if a rush of warmth filled her from within. "I felt something too," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the rustle of the autumn leaves. "I wasn't sure if you felt it, but I've been hesitant to say anything." Eli's breath caught at her admission, hope flaring in his chest. "Really?" "Yes. There's something special between us, something that feels different from anything else I've ever experienced," she said, her cheeks flushing pink. "But I know how the village can be, and I didn't want to put that pressure on us." Eli released a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, relief coursing through him. "I understand. I've been wrestling with my fears of being judged, of not being enough." "You're more than enough," she assured him, stepping closer, her eyes locking onto his. "I've come to admire your strength and kindness. You care fiercely for those around you, and that's beautiful." As they stood there, surrounded by the preparations for the festival, Eli felt as if a light had ignited within him. This was a moment he had longed for, a slight awakening that promised adventure, and he could feel it radiating between them. As Lila took his hand, an electric current bolted through him, igniting every nerve ending. "We should cherish what we have," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "Let's not rush it, but explore wherever this leads." Eli nodded, a smile forming on his lips. "I would love that." The festival unfolded around them as they continued to prepare for the day's festivities, laughter and music blending in the air like notes of a cherished song. They moved together like two harmonizing melodies, their connection solidified before the vast tapestry of the village they now called home. As dusk approached, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Eli's heart felt lighter than it had in years. Lila stood by his side, her presence calming and invigorating all at once. In this moment, this simple yet profound moment, he realized that love, unlike the echoes of childhood fears, was rooted in trust, understanding, and connection. Together, they would navigate the uncharted waters of their relationship, hand in hand, heart to heart. As the first stars twinkled high above, Eli cast a glance at Lila. "No matter what happens, know that you've opened a door for me, one I never thought I'd find," he murmured. "And you've shown me that vulnerability could lead to authenticity," she replied, her voice barely louder than a whisper. With an unbreakable bond forming between them, Eli felt a sense of belonging blossom where once there lay only loneliness. Together, they were embarking on a journey filled with unexpected twists, an adventurous tale driven by love's revelation and the promise of what was yet to come. A heart open. The morning after the harvest festival shimmered with possibility as Eli awoke to the soft light filtering through his window, the scent of dew-kissed grass wafting through. There was a new warmth blooming within him, a resolute sense of hope that lingered from his heartfelt conversation with Lila. He could scarcely believe that he had confessed his feelings and found a mirror reflecting those same emotions right back to him. Stepping outside, he found the village still enveloped in quietude. The sounds of roosters crowing and birds chattering filled the air. Eli took a deep breath, the crispness invigorating as he stretched his arms high above his head, soaking in the bright morning. Today would be different. Today he would embrace the heart open right beside Lila and face the world that sought to define him. The plan was to meet Lila at the Glade, a location that had become their sanctuary, a place of solace, laughter, and deepening connection. He had sent her a note earlier, the ink still fresh with eagerness, inquiring if she would join him for a morning walk. With each step toward the Glade, his anticipation grew, sparking a joyful flutter in his chest. Upon reaching the lush greenery, he found Lila already seated beneath the ancient oak tree. The morning sun dappled her hair with rays of gold, and her focus was entirely engrossed in a small notebook. Eli couldn't help but smile at her, feeling as if he had walked into a dream, the kind where everything around him was impossibly beautiful. "Good morning, Eli," she called without glancing up, setting her pencil down as she felt his presence. "Good morning, Lila. Were you writing about our adventures?" he asked, settling beside her. She laughed, a sound reminiscent of wind chimes dancing in a summer breeze. "I was actually sketching. There's something magical about this place, don't you think? It seems to inspire creativity." He leaned closer, peering at her doodles. Scenes of the Glade with little whimsical creatures hidden among the flora. "You have such a gift," he admired. "Each little detail brings this world to life." "It's easy when I'm surrounded by beauty and friends," she replied, her smile dazzling in the sunlight. "I find inspiration in everything that you could easily overlook if you hurried by." Eli craved that perspective, one that saw detail rather than shadows. Today felt like a new beginning, a chance to embrace the person he wanted to be. "Lila, I think we should open our hearts to more possibilities," Eli began, his tone resounding with conviction. "This connection between us. It means the world, and I want to explore it fully." Lila tilted her head, curiosity shimmering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I want to share everything," he continued. "Stories, laughter, hopes. I want to learn about you, and I want to share my world with you. Not just here in the Glade, but beyond it too." Her expression relaxed, filled with warmth and excitement. "I feel the same way, Eli." Sharing experiences fosters understanding, and in turn, deepens connections. "We should explore the village together." Eli's heart soared. "Let's wander into town and visit less familiar places. I think I've avoided them longer than I should have." With their hands brushing as they stood, Lila's sincerity and enthusiasm bolstered Eli's courage. "How about the old bookstore? I heard they have rare volumes. Plus, we could find the best spot to watch the sunset tonight." "Perfect choice," Eli echoed, inviting her laughter into the air, a melodic sound that felt essential to his well-being. The two set off toward Eldergrove, feeling like explorers discovering a new world. As they walked, each step deepened their connection. They strolled past bustling market stands filled with fresh produce, flower stalls bursting with color, and children enjoying treats made of caramelized sugar. "Look at those herbs," Lila said, pointing toward a vendor. "I've never seen such vibrant basil. Imagine the dishes we could make." "I can picture plenty of delightful recipes," Eli chuckled. "But perhaps we should focus a little less on food and a bit more on adventure. Have you ever visited the bakehouse?" Lila nodded enthusiastically. "I have. Their honey cakes are the most heavenly things. I tell everyone about them. But I'd love to go again." Their hearts felt like dancing flames ignited by excitement. They continued exploring the village together, marveling at the art of the local artisans, sharing dreams of what could be. As the sun began to set, bathing the village in warm oranges and deep pinks, they found themselves atop a small hill overlooking the valley. The view was breathtaking, a patchwork of forests and fields spattered with houses, under a canopy of fading light. "This is beautiful," Lila breathed, taking a seat on the grass. "I could stay here forever." Eli sat beside her, engulfed by the feeling of peace washing over him. "Me too," he said softly. "It reminds me of the oak tree, the one that grounds us. This freedom to be ourselves side by side, it's liberating." Lila turned to him, her gaze penetrating. "Eli, what we have is rare. It's not just friendship, it's deeper, and I'm grateful for every moment I spend with you." Those words resonated within him, filling spaces once held by loneliness. "I want us to continue growing together, open and honest, embracing whatever comes our way." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lila leaned closer, their shoulders touching. I want that too. To explore both our aspirations and dreams, wherever they may lead. Eli felt an undeniable urge to grasp her hand in that moment. The warmth of her presence and the openness between them enveloped him, and their fingers intertwined effortlessly, weaving themselves into a shared tapestry of connection. I'm excited for our journey ahead, Lila. Knowing you have my back, he said, his voice trailing off as he searched her eyes for understanding. It makes every fear feel less daunting. She beamed back at him, cascading light shimmering around them. And I will always have your back, Eli. In that serene twilight, as shadows danced across the hills, Eli's heart opened further like the blooming flowers they had gathered before. Together, they ignited a vision, one of possibilities unfurling like petals kissing the dawn, each promise leading them deeper into the heart of their newfound love. And with that embrace, they stepped boldly into the future, hearts entwined. Did you enjoy this video? If so, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to join us for more amazing stories every day. Here at Daily Anything History, there's always something new to discover. See you in the next video.